Hi, my name is Ken Moss, and I'm speaking at the wonderful Island Free Library in Block Island, and we are celebrating James Joyce. And I have chosen to read an essay by Ezra Pound called James Joyce, At Last the Novel Appears. And this appeared in Ezra Pound's publication, The Egoist, in February 1917. I quote, "It is unlikely that I shall say anything new about Mr. Joyce's novel, A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. I have already stated that it is a book worth reading and that it is written in good prose. To use these terms, I do not employ the looseness of a half-crown reviewer. I am very glad that it is now possible for a few hundred people to read Mr. Joyce comfortably from a bound book instead of from a much-handled file of egoists or from a slippery bundle of typescript. After much difficulty, the egoist itself turns publisher and produces A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man as a volume. For the hatred of ordinary English publishers for good prose is, like the hatred of the Quarterly Review for good poetry, deep-rooted, traditional. Since Landor's imaginary conversations were bandied from pillar to post, I doubt if any manuscript has met with so much opposition, and no manuscript has been more worth supporting. Landor is still an unpopular author. He is still a terror to fools. He is still concealed from the young, not for any alleged indecency, but simply because he did not acquiesce to certain popular follies. He, Landor, still plays an inconspicuous role in university courses. The amount of light which he would shed on the undergraduate mind would make students inconvenient to the average run of professors. But Landor is permanent. Members of the Fly Fishers and Royal Automobile Clubs and of the Irishmen may not read him. They will not read Mr. Joyce. Despite the printers and publishers, the British government has recognized Mr. Joyce's literary merit. This is a definite gain for the party of intelligence. A number of qualified judges have acquiesced in my statement of 2 years ago that Mr. Joyce was an excellent and important writer of prose. The last few years have seen the gradual shaping of a party of intelligence, a party not bound by any central doctrine or theory. We cannot accurately define new writers by applying to them tag names from old authors, but is there no adequate means of conveying the general impression of their characteristics? One may at times employ such terminology, carefully stating that the terms are nothing more than approximation. With that qualification, I would say that James Joyce produces the nearest thing to Flauberian prose that we have now in English, just as Wyndham Lewis has written a novel which is more like and more fitly compared with Dostoevsky than is the work of any of his contemporaries. In like manner, Mr. T.S. Eliot comes nearer to filling the place of James Laford in our generation. In paren, doing the nearest thing need not imply an approach to a standard from a position inferior. Two of these writers have met with all sorts of opposition. If Mr. Eliot probably has not yet encountered very much opposition, it is only because his work is not yet very widely known. My own income was considerably docked because I dared to say that Gaudiya Breshka was a good sculptor and that Wyndham Lewis was a great master of design. It has, however, reached an almost inducible minimum, and I am perhaps fairly safe in asserting Joyce's ability as a writer. It will cost me no more than a few violent attacks from several sheltered and therefore courageous anonymities. When you tell the Irish that they are slow in recognizing their own men of genius, they reply with street riots and politics. Now, despite the jobbing of bigots and of their sectarian publishing houses, and despite the fly fishers and the types which they represent, and despite the unwillingness of the print packers, a word derived from pork packers, and the initial objections of the Dublin publishers and the later unwillingness of the English publishers, Mr. Joyce's novel appears in book form, and intelligent readers gathering few by few will read it, and it will remain a permanent part of English literature. Written by an Irishman in Trieste and first published in New York City, I doubt if comparison of Mr. Joyce to other English writers or Irish writers would much help to define him. One can say that he is rather unlike them. The portrait is very different from The Sentimental Education, but it would be easier to compare it with the novel of Flaubert's than with anything else. Flaubert pointed out that if France had studied his work, they might have been saved a good deal in 1870. If more people had read the portrait and certain stories in Mr. Joyce's Dubliners, there might have been less recent trouble in Ireland. A clear diagnosis is never without its value. Apart from Mr. Joyce's realism, the school life, the life in the university, the family dinner with the discussion of Parnell depicted in his novel, apart from, or of a piece with, all this is the style, the actual writing, hard, clear-cut, with no waste of words, no bundling up of useless phrases, no filling in with pages of slosh. It is very important that there should be clear, unexaggerated, realistic literature. It is very important that there should be good prose. The hell of contemporary Europe is caused by the lack of representative government in Germany and by the non-existence of decent prose in the German language. Clear thought and sanity depend on clear prose. They cannot live apart. The former produces the latter. The latter conserves and transmits the former. The mush of the German sentence, the straddling of the verb out to the end, are just as much a part of the befoozlement of culture and the consequent hell as was the rhetoric of later Rome and seed and is symptom of the Roman Empire's decadence and extinction. A nation that cannot write clearly cannot be trusted to govern, and not to think. Germany has had two decent prose writers, Frederick the Great and Heine, the one taught by Voltaire and the other saturated with French and with Paris. Only a nation accustomed to muzzy writing could have been led by the nose and bamboozled by the Germans have been by their controllers. The terror of clarity is not confined to any one people. The obstructionist and the provincial are elsewhere, and in them alone is a permanent danger to civilization. Clear, hard prose is the safeguard and should be valued as such. The mind accustomed to it will not be treated or stampeded by national phrases and public emotionalities. These facts are true even for the detesters of literature, for those who love good writing, there is no need of argument. In the present instance, it is enough to say to those who will believe one that Mr. Joyce's book is now procurable.